everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. I hope everybody is having a great week. And I wanted to give a shout out to anybody who is invested in SpaceX. Now, I'm not going to make any forward predictions. I'm not going to say that what's happening with the stock will continue to happen with the stock. I will just say this. There were a cacophony of voices that were saying, "Oh, SpaceX is going to go down after their Q2 announcement." Blah 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 blah. The stock went up, and then it paired back a bit the next day. But then they were saying, well, it doesn't matter what happens after the announcement, after their financials announcement, because they have a lockup expiry period hitting on Thursday, which the all of these all of these employees and former employees of Tesla will be able to sell their shares in the open market. And what have we seen since yesterday? Yesterday, towards the close of the bell, the stock popped. Today, the stock is up now 12%. I'm not going to say it's going to stay this way, but what I am saying is it seems that employees are possibly not selling, or if they are selling, there are more buyers of the stock, of SpaceX stock right now, than there are sellers, which is forcing pricing pressure, which is moving the stock upwards. And so this is the first lockup period that has expired, and the stock has gone up. We'll see what the stock does over time or over the next few months. I am invested in this, in SpaceX, but I am looking at it from the long-term view, say the 2030, 2031, 2032 view, and not what is happening necessarily today. I would just say any of those people, those multiple accounts or hundreds of accounts that are out there on, say, YouTube that were pushing, oh, the lockup expiry is going to tank the stock. It hasn't yet. We'll see what happens. The stock is up 12.67% or 12.7% right now. We'll see what happens. But yeah, just very interesting. The other thing that I wanted to get into was there was the release today of the jobs report, and the jobs report was up. And I happen to follow some financial accounts that were essentially implying that the job market is crushed right now. Oh my God, we were expecting 100,000, we got 44, blah, 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 whatever, right? Yeah, we're getting back to kind of, I would say, a relatively normal hiring cycle, but I would say there's some outside pressure that's happening right now on the job market, not AI, by the way, that is preventing it from going over 100,000 jobs created monthly, or quarterly, monthly or quarterly, it doesn't matter. And that has more to do with interest rates. Interest rates are very high right now. I don't say like they're super high, because in comparison, if anybody was around in the 80s, I was way too young then. But the point is like if you were a grown adult in the 80s, you saw significantly higher interest rates. And so you saw what that market was like. And then what came out of that was like this explosion of kind of growth with the introduction of lower interest rates, or the lowering of interest rates. And so right now, the way I kind of view it is I'm actually moderately impressed with the fact that we've been able to have positive jobs growth month over month. Even the revision downwards are still in the positive direction, versus what we had in what I would say the real Biden kind of economic time period, right? Like there was if you're looking at the left of this chart, the far left, June 2022, all of those jobs are because the economy opened back up. These are states that were closed down. And so the suppression, this artificial suppression on job growth was lifted. And then what you see subsequently is the rapid hiring of a bunch of people back into the workforce that were there before COVID. And then you see interest rates start to skyrocket up. And then what do you see? Negative job growth. And so then all of these employees that were getting hired were then getting laid off. And so then you saw kind of this weird point in the economy where if you were in tech, you were like looking around and going, man, we are laying off like a ton of people right now. This doesn't look good. And you're kind of like forward looking. And but the interesting thing is at the time, and I kind of have some other couple slides to show, but the interesting thing at the time is if you're watching the news was like, oh, the economy is doing great. The economy is doing great. Meanwhile, you had all of these signals, say the jobs data that was coming out, and it was like negative, which means that more people were exiting the job force and or getting laid off than were coming in. And so what you had is an entire media apparatus that just ignored it completely. Now, if you're a smart person, you look at how high interest rates and that kind of, I would say, lack of hiring is it kind of like foreshadows where the economy is. And a lot of that affects things much further down the road. So when you have a bunch of like, I would say lower income individuals losing their job, it's not as detrimental to the overall economy. Not to say that I don't care about their job losses. Job losses, no matter who they are, suck. But the contribution that they have to the economy is much lower. And so the impact isn't as great. But what you saw over the Biden term was a hiring of a lot of low skilled employees and low kind of like these retail jobs and all this other stuff as these stores open back up and they started hiring all these people. I mean, so you saw all of these low skilled laborers entering the workforce. But at the same time, you were seeing significant trimming within white collar jobs. And these are the people that move the economy. And so you could foresee like all of these people leaving the economy and their dollars leaving the economy, which, by the way, is the entire point of the Fed raising interest rates, which is to create higher unemployment, which sucks money out of the economy, which then brings things back down. It tries to control inflation. I would say it's an archaic way to do it. And I think the way that Trump is approaching it, or Trump administration is approaching it, is a better way. But at any rate, Jay Powell is gone. We have a new Fed chair in. Things are looking much, much different now. But the point is you have all of these higher pay employees losing their income. So now they're draining their savings, they're draining their accounts, they're maybe selling stocks, they're doing all of the things. And that has a lagging kind of effect on the economy. So as this stuff is happening within 2023 through 2024, you see the effects on the economy now. And so like all of those people not spending for significant periods of time, like keep in mind, these people are going into the Whole Foods and the Wegmans and they're shopping at Hugo Boss or they're shopping at Lululemon, they're shopping at all these places. And now they're not. And so that money is not going into those stores. Those stores make less money. So then they essentially start to look at how they can trim back their employee counts and also like reduce their overall spending before they actually have to do layoffs. And so that spending goes into marketing companies. It goes into software that they own and all this other stuff. So you have this significant lagging effect on the economy that happens. So like Trump comes in, the economy is like, not so great. And so what you have is trying to put in policy that's not, I would say, leveraging government spending or government, I should say government hiring, because government is printing a lot of money. But the point is like, it's not government hiring that's driving job growth or kind of staving off the loss of job growth. These are private sector jobs that are hiring. the federal government is reducing employees. And honestly, that's what you see in these numbers. If you're looking in the 2024 where they're negative, each one of those coincides with Trump firing, or the Trump administration firing a bunch of federal employees. That happened pretty much immediately. So you have, leading into the end of the year, you have the offer to buy them out. And then you have all these lawsuits that happened. And then at the beginning, kind of like within Q2 of this year, you had the lawsuits making their way through the court system saying, hey, yeah, the executive branch does have the ability to fire all these people. And then so you see the red again. But all of the green growth within this Trump administration, those are all private sector jobs. The red is all federal employees losing their jobs. And you can see this in the numbers. So overall, like, while I'm not going to say like, oh, things are super rosy and like the job market is like super great right now, it's just okay. It is not bad. It's not awesome. It's not great and wonderful. I'm not going to lie about it. But what I will say is that everything that the administration is doing right now, sans the war in Iran, is actually creating an environment that is conducive to hiring high-skilled, high-paying jobs. And so, we can take that for what it is. But what I wanted to look at was the inflation numbers, because there was this conversation going around on like the $20 burrito and all this other stuff. And what I find interesting about the conversation is that it's happening now. And it wasn't happening in 2022, right? So like, the reason why I say that is the inflation under Trump, first administration, and even this administration, is lower than it was under Biden. And keep in mind, inflation numbers means how much the prices are going up. And so when you have a 2% increase or a 2.4 or a 3% increase or 2.9% increase, you don't really see that as much. But once you start getting close to 5% and then you go to 8%, that is significant. And like Dan Crenshaw's response, by the way, like I do not like Dan Crenshaw. Although I did, the only reason I know who he is because of Pete Davidson, who I just dislike generally. But at any rate, like, I'm not a fan of Dan Crenshaw, but I get what he's saying. Like, when you're looking at it from the lens of looking at a $20 burrito, like, yes, there are cheaper options out there. But ultimately, what people are trying to say is that somehow prices are so high right now. And nobody was talking about this in 2022. And when I say nobody, I don't mean like Republicans weren't talking about it. I mean the entire media wasn't talking about it. They were turning a blind eye to the significantly high inflation that was hitting everybody, from the prices at the pump, which were higher or were high, and then ultimately like the massive amount of inflation that happened in a very short amount of time that didn't go away. So like, you had 4.7 followed by 8%, followed by 4%, and then it did go down to 2.9%. But that's a 4% increase, a 4.7% increase, followed by a 8% increase on top of that. So prices went up 4.7%, and then they went up again from there, another 8%, which is super high. And then from there, they went up another 4.1%. And then they started to slow a little bit, going to 2.9%. And for some reason right now, all of a sudden, people are talking about how they're concerned about the high prices of things. Like, where were you in 2021 and 2022? Like, I get it that like Democrats and the Democrat media is talking about it significantly more, creating the perception that prices are so much higher now. And technically, yes, they've gone up 2.9, 2.6, 3.2. Since they went up 4.7, 8%, and 4.1. And like, this is where I don't have time for this. Like, Republicans coming out and talking about how high prices are now, the pricing is slowing. So like, any price increases, which I'll get to, milk, eggs, lettuce, gasoline, bread, like I will get to those prices. But the fact that all of a sudden people are worried about it now when they weren't worried about it when it was 4.7, followed by 8%, followed by 4.1%, like I don't have time for that. Like, and most other people don't. And this is where I get where like Dan Crenshaw is coming from. And again, I do not like the dude, but the point is like we're talking about this now. Like, where was the entire media apparatus when Biden did that last stimulus check cut, which threw inflation for a loop, followed by paring back all of the gas pipeline expansions and also making it harder to produce gas in the US. Like, where was all the fury and outrage then? Like, this is an entirely manufactured outrage at this point. And the only reason I think Republicans generally are talking about it is because they're seeing it more in their face everywhere versus like when we were under Biden and we were told every day that, oh, don't believe our lying eyes. Inflation isn't a big deal. And it's just kind of transitory. And like, no, it is not. And no, it wasn't. Like the prices that we have now are going up significantly less than they were before. That is paring back inflation. Now, the goal is to get it to under 2% or 2% or below. Like that's the generalized goal. But anybody like talking about like just losing their mind over inflation now, like honestly, where were you in 2021 and 2022 and 2020, like the entire Biden presidency? Like I don't get it. It's just kind of annoying. But generally speaking, if we're looking at prices in general, like I ran lettuce, regular gas, white bread, milk, and eggs. You can see white bread was relatively low, just over $1, entering 2019, which was Trump. Then we see it go up towards the end of the Biden administration to just hitting out at about $2, and then you see it trailing back down. How is it going back down, you might ask? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because the input costs are going down. The same thing for eggs. Eggs, completely manufactured price spikes. Had bird flu epidemic, this other stuff, so they just trashed the entire supply of eggs twice. And so you see the spike. What do you see? The price of eggs spiking and then going back down. This is almost directly due, by the way, to regulation. Regulation is what forced producers to have to just get rid of a bunch of eggs that were otherwise fine. Now, we can look at the same thing for lettuce, and you can track it. Lettuce right now is spiking because what? Oh, that's right. We have like this entire like foodborne illness, which is giving a whole bunch of people diarrhea. And now they're just getting rid of the lettuce supply. So lettuce is in low supply, which means that the price is going to go up. That's short term. But generally speaking, you can see it trending in a down direction, sans actually this current situation. The same thing for milk. I mean, we see milk going from under $3 in the Trump administration to going up over $4 and then hanging out there. The direct cost, by the way, that's price or forcing prices higher for milk is directly correlated to gas. That's really it. But you can see it coming down and then kind of flattening out around that area. And then once the gas prices go down again, milk is going to go back down to where it was before, which is probably now just under $4. Most of these prices, by the way, like prices don't necessarily go down over time. They go up. But again, inflation is about how you can control those costs over time and reduce kind of the percentage increase over time. But like, again, this information is out there for everyone to look at. If we're looking at the Brent crude oil prices right now, they're sitting at $80. Now, it takes, I talked about this before, it takes 30 days to work from the time that something is taken out of the ground to the time that it actually makes it to the pump for regular gas or like whatever. And so you can see the delay here. So the Iran war starts, we were down at the lowest low, $66 a barrel, which was, by the way, significantly lower than it was under Joe Biden. Again, when you zoom out and look at the prices, you're like, oh, crap. We are back to where prices were at basically the beginning of the Trump administration. That's like, when you look at it from that perspective, it's definitely cast a different light. We had sustained high prices in fuel. This directly contributed to inflation under Joe Biden. At any rate, if we're looking at it from the start of the war, we're looking at it again from $66. It now sits at $80. It peaked at $118 for basically a day. But we had gas over $100 for a substantial period of time. So let's just say Friday, May 15th, that gas works its way through the system, June 15th to June 15th. And so June 15th was essentially the peak, or around there was the peak of prices, and then prices dropped off. Now we look at where gas prices were at the peak in June, which was $87 a barrel. Those prices worked their way through all the way through June and into July. July prices, these July lows all the way through, you can kind of average that out to about $80 a barrel. Those prices made their way through August. Gas prices have come down. Gas currently sits at $80 a barrel. And I said this to someone else before. If gas sits between $70 and $80 a barrel, gas prices are going to come down. People actually start to notice it. Like, now you can't say that gas prices are higher. Gas prices have come down on average across the entire country because we've had $80 gas for a substantial period of time versus $100 a barrel, $90 a barrel gas for a substantial period of time. Again, if we're talking about prices where they are today, like, the prices for consumer goods lag the prices of oil. So the price of oil has been kind of sustained around the $80 a barrel pace, which has created some price stability, which then you'll see prices in consumer goods go down over the subsequent months. Even within this quarter, you can see that prices are not rising as much, and prices for some things are coming down. And you're going to continue to see that as long as gas stays in this range. And I've said this to other people. If for some reason he puts boots on the ground, which I have zero faith that he will actually do that. But if boots went on the ground into Iran, gas price is going to shoot up to averages around $110 to $120 a barrel, if not more. And that will crater the entire economy. Now, Trump, in my opinion, is smart enough not to do that because he knows the direct effect it'll have on the economy. But at any rate, just wanted to talk about that. The other thing I wanted to talk about was what do I watch? So some people have asked, like, where do I get my informed opinions from, or where do I kind of look for insider kind of information that I then take and go, okay, that was interesting. Now let me go do some research, leverage AI, do some internet searches, and then look at further documents. I would say about, just generally speaking, Max Afterburner, pretty good on covering the war. He's very hyperbolic when it comes to his enthusiasm around the Air Force, as he is a former pilot. But he has some great insights into kind of just the approach that the military is taking in the region, and also covering where we're bombing and other things. And so I take his information and then I go, okay, this was interesting. I have these couple points. Let me do some more research to actually make sure that, one, he's right on these points and not feed me a bunch of garbage, or his viewers a bunch of garbage. And then two, like, this is stuff I think other people might find interesting. What about it, by the way? Very solid coverage of SpaceX on launches and just space in general, and kind of the broader landscape. The Hill Rising, I watch daily. Like, even though it's entirely frustrating to watch because the leftist talking heads they have on there are ridiculous. Usually you have Niall Stanich, who was the guy who got shouted down by the press secretary, calling him fake news, and being a biased reporter. Like, classic, absolutely classic. But there's Niall Stanich, and then there's Lindsay. It might be Cunningham, or I can't remember her last name. Lindsay is the absolute worst, has the worst takes, but I think it's good to like hear this stuff because you can see how the left is arguing on certain issues. Of course, if I find a segment in Rogan that's interesting, I'll watch it. If I see someone who is generally interesting to me that Rogan has on, usually people that are more in the sciences, and it's more sciences, actors I find interesting, and what's the other one? There's another group of people I find interesting, but generally speaking, I don't watch a lot of Rogan's full podcast because I don't really take much away from it, unless, of course, it is somebody that I find interesting. I do on occasion watch Benny Johnson. I will say, like, the core of what he's saying is usually pretty accurate, but his hyperbole and just like rah for the right constantly, like, it's pretty apparent. Obviously, critical drinker. For those that actually follow movies and movie reviewers, there's a whole host, like, ecosystem of folks which I follow, that talk about stuff. And by the way, I wish that all of these online movie review folks would wait until at least Thursday to give their review, or their out of theater reviews, because they get early access, because it can it can prevent people from going out and seeing a movie that otherwise they would have seen, sans hearing about you talking, giving your opinion about it before it actually came out. On occasion, I'll watch segments from the Young Turks because I'm just interested in what the left is talking about. Me, Kevin, I actually started watching him because I was very interested in buying real estate and other things. Now he's gone out and he's become political, and then he's talking about finance. I called him out today because he was skewing data. Like, the new jobs report is horrible. And then, like, I just smoked him in a review in the comments section. And he was like, oh, you used AI to comment? And I'm like, bro, you can't refute anything I just said. Like, you basically put out a bunch of BS. And there is a whole host of other people that I follow. The quartering, again, I take a lot of what people say with a grain of salt. By the way, Ryan Macbeth, if you want insights into what the military is doing, including stockpiles and other things, great follow. But I follow a lot of people that I don't agree with. I follow some people that I do agree with. But generally speaking, like, I try to get both sides and see where people are coming from. There's me yesterday just trying to find the Vader episode from a fan film. But there's a lot of informative people out there. Maxonomics, by the way, great, absolutely great. There's a bunch of other people. If you want to learn how to cook a good steak, Gouda Foods, Aguga Foods is phenomenal. I would say definitely give them a follow. But at any rate, I just wanted to kind of give you some insight into what I was thinking and where I kind of get some of my insight. But hope everybody has a great weekend. And let me know what you think in the comments section below. Who do you follow? Who do you take seriously? But as always, keep believing the best is still ahead for America. Peace out.